Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel, where secrets don't stay buried, and the truth always finds a way out. She didn't see me. Not once. Not even a glance. I was standing no more than 10 feet away from her, sipping flat punch from a plastic cup, and yet, she looked straight through me like I was part of the wallpaper. She was laughing, spinning under the fairy lights, her hand in his, like she'd forgotten I existed. Like I was some awkward ex she didn't want to admit she brought along. The music was loud, but not louder than the thought crashing over and over in my mind. This is not the woman I married. I wasn't supposed to be at that party. I hadn't even been invited. I only found out because she left the flyer on the kitchen table, half covered by her curling iron. Just a corporate thing, she'd said. You'd be bored. But something didn't sit right with me. Lately, nothing had. So I showed up. Not to spy. To see. I walked in through the side entrance. No one noticed. Everyone was too wrapped up in their curated little moments, their cocktails and collared shirts and forced laughter. And then I saw her, Darla, my wife of 8 years. She was wearing a green dress I hadn't seen before, one that hugged her like it knew it had something to prove. And he was next to her. Colby. Again. He had his hand on the small of her back like it belonged there. Like it always had. I stood there, frozen, watching her glide through the crowd with him. She looked alive. Not happy. Not drunk. Alive. Like the version of her I hadn't seen in years had come back to life, but not for me. I stayed in the shadows. I watched. I counted. 3 songs. The third one was slow. His hands weren't on her waist anymore. They were higher. Closer. She didn't stop him. Her forehead rested against his. They weren't dancing anymore. They were remembering something I hadn't been part of. And that's when I knew. This wasn't about insecurity. It wasn't about jealousy. It was about reality knocking the wind out of me in a room full of strangers. She came up for air between songs, walking toward the drink table, brushing past me like I was air. I stepped in front of her. She jolted. Alan, what are you doing here? I didn't answer her question. I looked her dead in the eye and said calmly, if you go back out there and dance with him again, we won't be having the same talk later. She laughed nervously. Don't be weird. It's just a party. No, it wasn't. That was the moment the party ended for me. And the moment something else, something irreversible, quietly began. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I laid next to her, staring at the ceiling, counting every breath like I was trying to time a bomb. Her back was turned to me. She always used to sleep curled into my side. Now it felt like we were strangers on a shared mattress. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. She made coffee, played some upbeat playlist on her phone, and hummed while buttering toast. I watched her from the hallway. The same woman I had married. Only now I couldn't recognize her soul. Or maybe I never really knew her to begin with. That thought. It hurt more than I was ready for. I asked her directly. Not angrily. Just calmly. Are you having an affair with him? She froze for a second. Then the eye roll. The sigh. Alan, for God's sake. I danced with a coworker at a work party. You're being paranoid. Paranoid. That word stuck to my skin like something sticky I couldn't peel off. Paranoia implies delusion. But I wasn't seeing ghosts. I saw hands. I saw glances. I saw something that wasn't meant for me. Still, I backed off. I've never been a confrontational guy. I overthink. I replay conversations. I retreat when I should speak up. So I just nodded and pretended I believed her. That was my pattern. Keep the peace. Swallow the suspicion. Smile through it. But then, later that night, I noticed her setting a password on her phone. A new one. And just like that, the game changed. She never used to lock it. We had nothing to hide. Or so I thought. Suddenly, it was always in her pocket or flipped face down. She'd get messages and walk out of the room to answer them. One night, I walked in while she was giggling into the phone, and she practically threw it across the bed to hang up before I heard anything. Who was that? I asked. She smiled. Just Sarah. From work. But Sarah had called our landline 3 hours earlier to ask if Darla was feeling better, since she'd left work early that day. I didn't say anything. Not yet. I needed to be sure. I didn't want to accuse her and be wrong. But I also couldn't sit in this house another night pretending I didn't feel it, the shifting, the hiding, the way her affection had started to rot at the edges. That weekend, she told me she had to go into the office to catch up on reports. It was Sunday. She wore lipstick and heels. I told her I'd come with her, keep her company while she worked. She hesitated. Why would you do that? I shrugged. I just want to be with you. She looked uncomfortable, almost panicked. Then she smiled too wide and kissed my cheek. Maybe next time, okay? I'll only be a couple hours. She didn't come home until almost midnight. No apology, no explanation, just silence, the scent of cologne that didn't belong to me, and her slipping quietly into the shower while I sat on the edge of the bed wondering when I stopped being her husband and became just a witness. Something inside me hardened that night. Not rage, not even heartbreak, just clarity. I wasn't crazy. I was finally awake. And now, I needed proof. Real proof. Because the next conversation we had wasn't going to be a warning. It was going to be a decision. I waited a full week before I did anything. Not because I wasn't ready, but because I needed to be sure. Needed to know that what I was feeling wasn't just some twisted projection of insecurity or leftover bitterness from a decade of small resentments. No, this was different. Her eyes didn't meet mine anymore. Her hands felt colder. Her voice changed when she lied, slightly higher, rushed, with a nervous flick of her hair. I'd memorized the patterns. So when she said she had to stay late at the office for a last-minute project review, I didn't argue. I kissed her on the cheek, helped her zip up her coat, and even held the door open for her with a soft "drive safe." She smiled, said she loved me, and then disappeared into the night like she hadn't just been practicing that same lie for weeks. 10 minutes later, I followed her. It felt pathetic, sitting in my rusted old car 2 blocks behind her, lights off, engine quiet, heart pounding like I was about to rob a bank. But there I was, a grown man tailing his own wife through the cold just to prove that he wasn't losing his mind. She didn't go to the office. She didn't even pretend to. She drove straight to the edge of town, past the business district, and into a dimly lit residential area I didn't recognize. Then she turned into the parking lot of a boutique hotel, the kind with no real signage, the kind people use for meetings they don't want to explain. I watched her park, and then I watched him walk out. Colby. Of course it was him. Wearing a black coat and that smug, self-assured grin like this was all completely normal. He opened her door before she even reached for the handle, like this was a routine. Like they'd done this before. Like he knew her timing, her pace, her perfume. She laughed. That laugh. The one she hadn't used around me in months. They walked in together. And I sat there. Frozen. I didn't storm in. I didn't call her. I didn't yell. I didn't even cry. I just sat there gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I don't know how long I waited. Maybe an hour. Maybe more. It felt endless. The world outside my car moved on. Traffic lights changed. Other cars came and went. But I was stuck in one frame, like someone pressed pause on my life and forgot to hit play again. Eventually, they came back out. Her hair was messy. His shirt was untucked. She kissed him before getting in her car. And then they drove off in different directions like nothing had happened. I didn't follow her this time. I already knew where she was going. Home. Back to me. Back to the man she thought was too weak to notice. Back to the fool who now had a choice to make. I didn't sleep that night either. I just laid in the dark, staring at the back of her head again. She smelled like hotel soap and borrowed cologne. I kept thinking, how long has she been doing this? What lies did I believe without even asking? What did I do to deserve this silence wrapped in fake smiles? And then I remembered something I had told her that night at the party. If you go back out there and dance with him again, we won't be having the same talk later. I meant it. And now, later had come. The morning after I followed her, I woke up before the sun. Not because I had a plan. Not because I had some grand scheme in mind. I woke up because I couldn't breathe. You know that feeling? Like something heavy is pressing down on your chest, and no position on the bed feels right. My heart wasn't racing. It was tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of making excuses for her. Tired of defending her in my own head just so I didn't have to face the truth. She was still asleep, curled up peacefully on her side like she hadn't just been in a hotel room with another man hours earlier. I stared at her for a long time, and all I could think was, how do you sleep so soundly with that kind of guilt in your chest? Or, is it not guilt at all? Just habit? I made coffee. Sat in the kitchen. No phone. No distractions. Just the silence I used to love but now hated, because it screamed all the things I didn't want to hear. When she came downstairs an hour later, she looked surprised to see me awake. "You're up early," she said, voice light, pretending nothing was wrong, as usual. She reached for a mug, then kissed the top of my head like she'd earned that right. And that's when it hit me. She didn't think I'd ever leave. She thought I was safe. Predictable. The boring man who would always be there no matter how many late-night meetings or girls' weekends she booked. I was background noise in her life. A quiet husband who'd been trained to ignore the static. But I wasn't static anymore. That morning, I called in sick to work. I didn't tell her. I waited until she left, once again dressed like she was going somewhere far more exciting than her desk job. And then I got to work. Not on revenge. Not on some dramatic confrontation. No, that wasn't me. But I did need to start taking my life back, piece by quiet piece. First, I changed the password to our joint email account. Then I pulled all my important documents from the shared filing cabinet and locked them in a box I hadn't touched in years. I scanned everything, bills, titles, accounts, and sent copies to a private email I knew she didn't know about. Then I checked the shared bank account. She'd been draining it, not in huge amounts, just little transfers every few weeks to an account under her name. I'd never noticed because I never looked. I trusted her. But there it was, months of withdrawals marked as personal savings. For what? A future without me? That's when I did something I never thought I'd do. I opened a new bank account, in my name only. I transferred half, not out of spite, but survival. I didn't know where this was going yet, but I wasn't going to be the guy left behind with a broken heart and an empty wallet. Later that night, she came home with takeout and a bottle of wine. She said she'd had a rough day and just wanted to relax. I nodded, sat with her on the couch, and watched her laugh at a dumb reality show while I tried not to think about how deeply fake everything had become. At one point, she leaned against me like she used to, her head on my shoulder, her hand tracing lazy circles on my arm. I almost closed my eyes, but then her phone buzzed, and her body tensed just slightly before she reached for it. A tiny flicker of panic behind her eyes. I didn't ask who it was, because I already knew. And in that moment, something solidified in me, not anger, not even heartbreak, just certainty. She didn't think I'd ever walk away. But that was her mistake, because I already had. She just hadn't noticed yet. She was running late the next morning. Her alarm didn't go off, or maybe she just ignored it again like she usually did. I sat at the table watching her rush around, tossing clothes on the bed, snapping at the coffee maker, cursing under her breath like the universe had conspired against her. I didn't say a word, just watched. Quiet, still, invisible, my new role in this marriage. She grabbed her purse off the hook, the big brown one she always carried to work, lately, the one I'd seen slung over her shoulder when she left for that hotel. She never let it out of her sight, not even at home. She even took it into the bathroom sometimes, which I always thought was weird, but I never questioned it. I question everything now. As she slung it over her arm, she noticed the weight, paused, opened it, frowned. Then she saw it. A folded note. My handwriting. No envelope. Just a single sheet of paper, tucked right between her makeup bag and her wallet. She read it once. Slowly. Then again. This time her hands trembled. I kept my eyes fixed on the kitchen table, pretending to be deep in thought. But I was watching her in the reflection of the microwave door, and what I saw was panic blooming beneath the surface of her perfectly painted face. The note wasn't long. It didn't accuse her of anything. It didn't scream or beg or threaten. It simply said, I know everything. I saw everything. You have a choice to make before I do. She didn't say anything for a while. Just stood there, gripping the paper like it might burn her fingers. I finally looked up, met her eyes. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, then closed it again. You're going to be late, I said flatly. She blinked. Is this a joke? I didn't respond. She tried to laugh, but it cracked halfway through. Then she stuffed the note back in her purse and walked out the door without another word. No kiss. No apology. No denial. Just silence. That told me more than any confession ever could. I didn't go to work that day. I stayed home and waited. I wanted to see what she'd do. Would she come back early? Would she send a text? Call? Would she even try to explain? She didn't. Nothing. I checked the tracking app one installed on her phone the week prior. She went to the same office building. Stayed there a few hours. Then left. But she didn't come home. She went to him again. I watched the little blinking dot move across the map, straight to the same hotel as before. The same routine. And suddenly it didn't even hurt. It just confirmed everything. She wasn't confused. She wasn't conflicted. She was choosing him. Repeatedly. Without shame. Without hesitation. Even after reading that note. Even knowing I knew. She was gambling that I wouldn't leave, that I wouldn't change, that I'd stay right here, quietly breaking, while she lived her double life. But here's what she didn't know. That note wasn't a bluff. It was a countdown, and the timer had just started. That evening, for the first time in weeks, I didn't track her. I didn't check the app, didn't refresh the screen to see which street she was driving down or how long she lingered at the hotel. I didn't need to. I already knew what she was doing. And more importantly, I knew what I was doing. For once, I wasn't the one waiting to react. I was the one setting the stage. I had the whole house to myself, and silence became my accomplice. I went through the drawers, the closets, the hidden pockets of our life. I wasn't searching for evidence. I had enough of that. I was removing parts of myself. Slowly, intentionally. My clothes, packed into a duffel bag. My documents, gone from the cabinet. My books, my tools, even my coffee mug, all quietly vanished from their usual places. I wasn't leaving yet, but I wanted her to feel it. The absence, the shift, the start of the unraveling. The last thing I did was change the code to the home Wi-Fi, not out of pettiness, but clarity. She didn't get to keep the comfort of my resources while handing her affection to someone else. Around 9:47 p.m., headlights rolled up the driveway. I turned off the living room light and sat on the edge of the bed in the guest room, heart steady. I didn't peek through the blinds like I usually did. I didn't brace myself. I just waited. She came in humming. Actually humming. Like she'd just had a relaxing spa night, instead of sneaking around with a man behind her husband's back. She dropped her keys on the kitchen counter, kicked off her heels, and called out, "Alan?" I didn't answer. She called again. "Alan, you home?" Still nothing. She walked through the hallway and into our bedroom, paused, and then I heard it. That tiny, sharp breath people take when something doesn't look quite right. My things were gone. She walked back into the hallway. I heard her footsteps quicken. Panic hadn't arrived yet, but confusion was settling in. Then she saw the note. The second one. I had left it on her pillow, folded neatly. I heard the rustle as she opened it. This one read, "You walked into this house smiling. That tells me everything I need to know. I hope he was worth it. I won't be here when you wake up tomorrow." She didn't call my name again. Didn't cry. Not right away. Just silence. And then, soft footsteps back down the hall. I imagined her sitting at the edge of the bed, reading that note over and over again, trying to decide if I meant it. The thing is, I did. She came into the guest room eventually. Stood in the doorway. "Alan," she said quietly, "what is this?" I looked at her. No yelling. No dramatics. Just a long, exhausted stare. "It's real," I said. "You're overreacting." "Wrong answer." "No," I replied, standing up. "I've underreacted for months." She stepped forward. "Let's talk. Please. Let's just talk." But I shook my head. "No, because if you dance with him again, we won't be having the same talk later. Remember that?" She flinched. The memory landed. And then came the tears. Not the kind you cry when you're broken. The kind you cry when your control starts to slip. When the person you always thought would stay suddenly doesn't. She reached for me, but I stepped back. Because the version of me she used to count on, the soft-spoken, naive, faithful husband, was no longer standing in front of her. That version of me was already gone. I left before dawn. Not dramatically. No slamming doors. No shouting or thrown suitcases. I didn't even start the engine until I'd rolled the car down the street in neutral, afraid the sound might wake her. It wasn't about being sneaky. It was about making sure she woke up alone. Not with a goodbye, but with silence. The kind that wraps around your chest and squeezes when you realize something permanent just shifted and there's no one left to argue with. I checked into a small, quiet place 2 towns over. Not a hotel. A private rental I found online under a name she wouldn't recognize. No paper trail. No credit card alerts. I wasn't hiding from her. I was simply reclaiming a piece of peace she'd chipped away at night after night while I laid awake pretending I didn't feel her slipping through my fingers. The first day was strange. Not sad, not freeing, just hollow. Like when a song ends mid-note. I walked for hours. Ate alone at a diner where no one asked questions. I watched people talk, laugh, live. I felt like a ghost sitting among the living. She didn't call. Not that day. But the next morning, I woke up to 15 missed calls, 8 voicemails, and a stream of texts ranging from cold confusion to panicked apologies. "Alan, I don't know where you are. This isn't funny. Please come home. Let's talk." I need to explain. You misunderstood everything. He means nothing to me. And my favorite, somewhere near the end. If you walk away from this, you're throwing away everything we built. I stared at that last one for a long time. Everything we built? She was the one who knocked it down. And now that the smoke had finally reached her lungs, she wanted to act like I was the one holding the match. She had always assumed I'd stay, that I'd forgive, that I'd break, bend, anything to keep the peace. She didn't expect stillness. She didn't expect me to simply go. I listened to one voicemail. Just one. It started with silence, then a shaky breath, then her whispering my name like saying it gently would summon me back. I'm sorry, she said, and the word almost sounded real. I don't know how I let things get this far. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't know how to stop. He wasn't supposed to mean anything. I just felt seen again. But I didn't realize what I was risking. I didn't realize you'd actually. She stopped herself. No tears. Just breathing. I'll be here if you want to come home. I still love you. I turned off the message before it finished. Because the truth was, I believed her. She did still love me, in the way someone loves a warm coat they left behind on a bench. Familiar, comfortable, but forgotten the second they found something more exciting. I wasn't angry anymore, just awake. I had always been her safety net. But she forgot that even nets can unravel when they're stretched too far. And now, with each hour that passed, the threads were snapping. Not with drama, with quiet, undeniable finality. It took her 11 days to find me. She showed up at the little cabin just before sunset. I'd left no address, no trail, but I wasn't careful to hide. A part of me wanted her to find me, not because I needed her back, but because I needed her to see what letting go looked like. She didn't knock at first. I watched her through the window as she stood on the porch, hugging herself like the wind had teeth. She looked smaller somehow. Not fragile, just real. Stripped of the arrogance, the deflections, the twisted excuses. Just Darla, the woman I once loved, standing outside the life she used to own. When I opened the door, she didn't speak. Her eyes scanned the room, saw my packed bag, the half-read journal, the untouched coffee on the table. I didn't ask how she found me. I just waited. Can I come in? She asked softly. I stepped aside. She entered slowly, like the floor might reject her weight. I didn't expect you to actually leave, she said. I know, I replied. That was part of the problem. She looked at me like she was searching for cracks in a wall that used to crumble under pressure. But there were none left. I had stopped breaking for her. She began to cry, not loudly, not theatrically. Just quiet tears that slipped down her face like truth finally washing her clean. I messed everything up, she said. I was selfish and stupid, and I thought I could have both, you and the excitement. But I see it now. I see what I did. I nodded. You saw him. I saw you. Now I'm seeing myself. She reached for my hand, and for a second, the past flickered. But it didn't pull me back in. I don't expect you to come home, she said. But if there's even a part of you that... There isn't, I interrupted gently. At least not the part that still belongs to us. That's when something shifted in her. A full-body sigh, like she knew this was it. The end, but also a beginning. We talked. Not like a couple trying to patch things up, but like two people burying the same memory together and placing a stone on top. Before she left, I said one last thing. You didn't just cheat on me with him. You cheated on you. The version of yourself that once wanted something real. She nodded, eyes glassy, then walked out the door. And just like that, she was gone. I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt whole. Because walking away doesn't always mean bitterness. Sometimes it means choosing yourself for the first time in years. That was my story. If you're still here, thank you for listening. Now I have a question for you. What's one historical moment in time where someone made a brave decision that changed everything? Drop it in the comments. I'm Alan, and this has been my confession. You're watching Reddit Confessions. See you in the next story.